どうかしたのか?
ともかく自分にできること。
Hi there everyone, Lars back again with another Apothecaries review brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And with this episode, we got the Apothecary Diaries version of the Pauper and the Prince, you could say right here, with Jinji and Mao Mao basically swapping positions with their disguises and going out for an adventure on the town. This was a fun, slow episode. In fact, slower than many of the other episodes that we've gotten in the show thus far, because really when you boil it down, you have effectively 3 separate scenes. You have Jinji getting all dressed up to go out in disguise, you have the handling of the babysitters, and then you have them just going through the town. It's not really a whole lot that's going on, and yet again, the beauty of this story is how everything just feels so wonderfully dense. You could dive into so much detail. But what really stuck out to me with this episode is, I think, an underlying message of that you don't really know another person until you have stepped out of your own comfort zone and begin to get to know them where you're just outside of that normal bubble. And for both Jinji and Mao Mao, in this particular case, even though they're going back into the red light district, for Mao Mao, dressing up as she is, pretending to be a high lady, being here with Jinji, who's pretending to be some lowly servant, things change immediately. And with those changes comes a certain amount of understanding for both of them. And we're going to see where things go within the story of how close they grow together, how well they begin to understand each other once they've begun to see one another in a slightly different light and have had a taste of each other's worlds. So let's quickly go over some of the details right here. We got Jinji, who wants to go out in disguise in order to meet a contact out on the town. So he asks Mao Mao to doll him up differently, especially since she's so good at applying her own disguise cosmetics. Well, what can she do for him? I loved this scene right here because it goes to show that with some knowledge, with some ingenuity, you do not need a Mission Impossible make a mask and make a new voice kit. You can use things that are readily on hand to make a person look entirely different, from their clothing to their bodily appearance, even their voice, their hair. All of this stuff can be changed, but only if you have the knowledge to do so. And Mao Mao, being an apothecary and being someone who has dealt with all kinds of interesting shenanigans within the red light district, she knows a thing or two, so she's applying that knowledge there to transform Jinji into someone else. And I really like how she's trying to deal with making him uglier, and how when she makes his body a little bit more poofy, I love how it makes his head stand out because it no longer is proportional in any kind of way, and she just can't, despite herself, get rid of that handsomeness, of that natural beauty that he has, which makes him just look so silly when they go out there. And yet the funny thing is that I think that they overthink it so much, because other than their handlers who are watching and being all like, are they going to be totally fine? No one is actually paying any attention to them. Unless you're in a palanquin that obviously marks you as some very important person, most people on town don't really care who you are unless you have business with them. But all of that aside, they go on out. Jinji is doing his part to try to play the annoying, subservient, highly loyal servant boy, and yet his posture, his way of speaking and everything already kind of rat him out. He's maybe a little too highborn for his appearance, and despite how beautiful she now looks, Mao Mao is running off to greasy food stands, which that's something Mao Mao and I would definitely have in common. I love going to street food vendors. Oh, some of the best food ever, and especially for getting chicken. And I like this little detail right here with how Jinji just immediately takes to the street chicken and makes a reference to being at military camp, which throws Mao Mao for a bit of a loop. We, as the audience, having seen a little bit more about Jinji's life apart from her, we realize that there's way more to him than what she understands, what she realizes. And what this tells me right here is that while Mao Mao is an incredibly perceptive girl and very intelligent, should she make the wrong diagnosis about a person or about an event or a situation, even though she's very insightful, it's very clear that that could get stuck in her head and she runs off with it in the wrong direction. She has misjudged Shinji, at least his identity, who he really is, and his background, just writing him off as some eunuch. As a result, all of these context clues that should be telling her that this is a completely different fellow that she's dealing with, she keeps on trying to make sense of all these details and wonder, what is this story? How did this guy become a eunuch? And as we're very likely going to see as the story progresses, that misunderstanding is going to lead to fantastic tension between the two, and yet more misunderstandings on Mao Mao's part, which is going to lead to, well, I've been spoiled for at least one scene that I know is coming up later on, so it leads to one very funny, interesting scene that we're going to see. I already know that the people who've read ahead in the manga or have read the light novels are definitely like, yes, we know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm not going to say anything more because I'm trying to stick to purely anime only here. But then we get to the very heavy stuff. As they're going into the entertainment district, and Mao begins to realize, oh, this is why you wanted to dress us up right here, why we're going in disguise. Because I would be readily recognizable, and if you go in like yourself, all of these ladies are going to come flocking on over to you, all these business people, because they will know you have money. I now understand why we're doing what we're doing. But then Shinji begins asking a very unpleasant question. How do you devalue a courtesan? This right here within the red light district, as we've already seen in previous episodes, this is one of the worst things that can happen for the women within this world. That should they be devalued, I mean, it's kind of the end of them. Their entire life is wrapped up in the contract to whatever house they are contracted to. They are expected to do certain services until their contract is out, or they've been bought out, hopefully by someone who actually cares for them. If they've been devalued, there is a less likely chance that someone will actually want to spend time with them, actually fall in love with them, and buy out their contract. Otherwise, they're going to be used until their contract runs out. So devaluing a courtesan is one of the worst things you could do as a customer or as an outsider to the red light district. And I would probably say even within the red light district, because that would be seen as an absolute betrayal. Yet Mao divulges what could actually be done. And it all depends on what level of courtesan you're dealing with. But it comes down to purity. If she's not just been set aside as your basic brothel worker, but is instead someone who people are actually spending money to spend time with, that then means that she is pure. And what you're effectively jockeying for is you're jockeying for a position to then pay to spend her first night with her, or to completely buy out her contract and take her home as a bride. So, if you wish to then truly destroy a high-level courtesan, you have to bring her purity into question. And one of the worst ways that could happen is if that courtesan should become pregnant, because that means she's already given away her virginity to someone else, and therefore is spoiled goods, and all kinds of bad things could happen as a result. The episode ends there, leaving us with a bit of an ominous cliffhanger. Who is Shinji meeting with? Why is he meeting with this person? Is he really just that obsessed with Lacan's story about this wonderful, beautiful lady from the Verdigris house that Shinji is just kind of making connections right here and being like, well, that's kind of where Mao comes from. If I want to better understand Mao, maybe I should go here. What is going on exactly with the scenario? We don't know. This will be revealed within the next episode, which according to the preview seems pretty ominous. But what I want to get to is what I said at the beginning, that if you really want to get to know someone else, you have to step out of your comfort bubble. You have to step a little bit into their world and get to know them in their world, or within an environment that takes both of you completely out of your comfort zones and begins to show a little bit more about yourself. because, well, as I've said in other videos, we are very complex individuals. Everyone is. You're like a gem. There's many different facets to you. And getting to really know someone is getting to know all of those different facets, which are different parts maybe of even ourselves that we don't really pay much attention to or that we try to bury. So within this episode, this is an episode that's really opening up the doors for Jinji and Mao Mao to get to know each other better. And I really, really like that. And as an author, if you're trying to build up good relationships between characters, whether it be romantic, platonic, an alliance of some sorts, characters need to get to know each other. And one of the best ways that you can do that is in situations where they are uncomfortable. And those are actually some really fun scenes to write, because then you can dive a little bit into anxiety, a little bit of nervousness. What do people give away by accident? Do they put on airs and lie? What kinds of things can we see a character do or try to avoid doing in order to, well, get along in a situation that, once again, they feel like a fish out of water in? And I'm just going to make a little connection right here to something I've said in the past on our podcast and in a couple of other episodes, where I'm like, if you really want to see the beauty of a girl, play mud football with her. You're going to learn a few things about the girl, and you can also flip this around and talk about the guy. You're going to learn some things. If they don't get into the mud, it already lets you know that these are not very adventurous people and they don't like getting dirty. Which, I mean, if you're someone who really likes to get elbows deep into the grease and be really hands-on, be adventurous, spontaneous, and get dirty doing whatever you're doing, you're opposites right here. And opposites can attract. That's totally fine. You're just right now learning about that person. So you're already learning about whether or not the person's going to get into the mud to play with you. Then as you're playing mud football, you're going to see what kind of sportsmen they're like. Do they cheat? Do they play according to the rules? Are they a sore loser or sore winner? Or are they very magnanimous? Are they very kind? How do they play? And then for the big one, when you finally get out of the mud, how do they look? If they are covered in blood, sweat, and mud, and they look totally attractive, you have found a winner. If they come out of the mud looking, eesh, don't worry. There's more to romance. There's more to allianceship than just simply good looks. But you're still learning about someone. And so here is my writing advice to all of you novice authors out there. If you really want to get to know more about a character, don't just simply have them in their element. That's way too easy. Instead, take your characters outside of their element. Put them into situations where they are uncomfortable, situations where they don't understand what they should be doing, situations that make them nervous. By doing that, you can expose a different side to your characters, and you can have a lot of fun with different sorts of character interactions. And it is in that particular paradigm that other characters get to really understand one another best. You truly understand someone else when they are not comfortable. Now then, that's no excuse in real life to go out there and make someone feel uncomfortable. That's why you invite them to play mud football. You don't shove them into the mud. But with all that being said right there, that is my review, my breakdown of this most current episode of the Apothecary Diaries, and some writing advice that I personally took away from it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the episode in the comments below. Let's get ready for another confrontation with Lacan in the upcoming episode. Ooh boy, I'm so excited. It also looks like some of the scenes that have kind of been hinted at now for many episodes, going back even to the opening for the first half of the season, it looks like we're finally going to get to some fun stuff, some fun dramatic stuff, and I am so excited for it. But in the meantime, as we wait for that episode, if you're looking for more reviews, analyses, breakdowns, writing analyses, and the likes, or I should say writing advice and the likes, then please check out our other videos here. And if you'd like to support the work that we do, then please check out some of the books that we ourselves have published. Links for them are in the description below. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible, fun, insightful adventure that we call the Apothecary Diaries. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
香ばしい鶏皮じゅわっと広がる油それにしてもうまそうに食べる